Hello, I'm KplusTV. You're watching news from Kazakhstan, and here are the headlines. The investigation of the incident with the aircraft of Scott Airlines ends in Almaty. Pilot of AN-24 was accused of landing speed exceeding. Ministry of Labor cuts childcare benefits for women who earn more than $1,200 a month. A Russian consulate office in Almaty held literature evening dedicated to the great poet Alexander Pushkin. Civil helicopter makes an emergency landing in Almaty region. The incident took place in Bakanas village. According to the preliminary information, there were 5 people on board, 4 tourists and a pilot. No victims were reported. Helicopter Bell 206L3 of Jersu Avia en route Burunday-Karazyok made an emergency landing in the region of Bakanas village. No victims were reported. There are no either dead nor wounded there. We agreed that their department will provide all the comments. Ministry of Transport and Communications published information on the website that specialists from the Air Incidents Investigation Department and Ministry of Transport and Communications have been sent to the landing area. Emergency Department of Almaty region specified that the helicopter was piloted by Ustinov. It is also known that 3 passengers were Ukrainian citizens. All of them were taken to the airport in Burundy. The investigation of the incident of AN-24 aircraft of Scott Airlines, which went beyond the runway on February 7th, in the Almaty International Airport is complete. To recap, the aircraft en route Taras-Almaty went off the course during landing and went on the security lane. Experts have established that the pilot exceeded the landing speed recommended for aircraft of this brand. In addition, he failed to apply the braking system on time. Fortunately, no tragedy occurred. Civil Aviation Committee addressed recommendation to the management of Scott Airlines to hold those in charge of safety disciplinary liable right up to dismissal from office. The investigation is underway. Russian city of Chelyabinsk was hit by meteor fragments. The explosion shockwave blew up windows in the buildings. Over 500 people were injured, including 67 children. They all appealed to hospitals with minor cuts from glass. The meteor was detected in the northern regions of Kazakhstan. According to the witnesses, the bright flash in the sky were seen by the residents of Kostanay, Aktobe and Khromtau. The footage of falling meteor recorded with the dashboard cameras appeared first on the internet. It captured the fireball that flashed while striking through the stratosphere. The unusual phenomenon was observed by the residents of major Russian cities of Yekaterinburg and Tyumen, yet most of the destruction occurred in Chelyabinsk. The building of zinc plant and ice arena received major damages. The KHL has already stated the need to reschedule the games of Hockey League. Russia's leadership already made comments on the fall of the extraterrestrial body. Premier Medvedev referred to meteor as a symbol of Krasnoyarsk Forum, whereas Putin ordered to render an immediate help for the victims. Later in the afternoon, it was reported that meteor landed in the lake of Chelyabinsk region. Whereas the Ministry of Emergency Situations in Kazakhstan were searching for fragments of the meteor near Aktobe, yet to no avail. NASA experts don't believe that Chelyabinsk meteorite has anything to do with the approach of asteroid 2012 DA14. Traumatic weapons could be soon withdrawn from circulation in Kazakhstan. The state is intended to spend significant amount of money to buy off the weapons from citizens. More details in the next report. Those people in black suits are certain that banning the sale of traumatic weapons will curb growth of crime by less than 1%. Having collected statistics for the last 5 years, they say that 800,000 of offenses have been committed in Kazakhstan and only 0.1% of them were committed with the use of traumatic weapons. Advocates of the amendments say that people in Almaty seem to have forgotten that traumatic weapons are primarily means of self-defense. Firearms with traumatic bullets, which are regarded as self-defense devices, are more often used for an attack. There is not a single registered case in Almaty when traumatic weapon was used for self-defense. The latest incident was an excellent example. One of the drivers took a shot at another for not giving him the road. The driver of VAZ 2107 was taken to hospital as he was shot from a traumatic weapon by the driver of Nexia, who cut up the car and then fired several shots in its direction. The representatives of Kazakhstan Armory Association immediately reacted to the proposal of the Ministry of Internal Affairs to withdraw traumatic weapons from circulation. They presented the data of the General Prosecutor's Office, whereby 47 people committed a crime using a traumatic weapon last year against 3,000 criminal actions taken by police officers themselves. International practices show that withdrawal of traumatic weapons definitely won't decrease the crime rate. If a person doesn't intend to kill, he will do it by any means, no matter what he will have as a weapon, a gun, a knife or a tire iron. The proposal of withdrawing traumatic weapons from the population has fueled a lively debate on the internet. Since banning is in favor, why not get rid of everything that is ever mentioned in the police reports, say critics. Why the issue about banning cars has never been raised, even though a lot more people are murdered and injured in a car accident rather than being shot from a traumatic weapon. I'm not speaking of a kitchen knife, one of the most commonly used murder weapons, which has never been prohibited though. Now about 100,000 traumatic weapons are reported to be owned by ordinary people in Kazakhstan. Experts say that the government will have to spend more than $46 million once the Ministry of Internal Affairs has an authority to redeem the traumatic weapons. The ministry itself hopes to spend $13 million. A meeting dedicated to the 24th anniversary of Soviet troops' withdrawal from Afghanistan was held in Astana. Veterans brought flowers to the memorial of soldiers internationalists and voiced an initiative to equate Afghan war veterans to World War II veterans. More than 600,000 officers and soldiers fought at the Afghan war, and more than 22,000 of them from Kazakhstan. Almost 1,000 people didn't return, 21 went missing, and many became disabled while in war. During a rally in memory of Afghan war veterans, MP Bakhtjan Yurtayev once again reminded the audience about the status of the veterans. We need to decide on the status of the veterans. It was a war and did take lives of 15,000 people. Was it a war? Of course, a whole army was involved in there. Soldiers who fought at Afghanistan proved their loyalty to oath of allegiance, and we deserve the government assistance. Especially mothers who lost their sons, wives and lost their husbands, children who lost their fathers and disabled veterans. We must take care of them because it is our duty. Therefore, I will demand and seek the decision to assign them the status of war veterans. Resident of the suburban village Kazilsuat, Tokbulat Gasanov organized a single-man protest in front of the Supreme Court building. The protester claims that he became a victim of a fraudster who is being covered up by some court representatives. The action surprisingly caught attention, and the man was promised a meeting with the chairman. I am a member of Nuratan party who had appealed to the party, the prosecutor general. I was hoping for the courts, and on February 5th the Supreme Court heard my case. 10 judges heard my case, and after discussing for half an hour they upheld the previous court's decision. That's when they killed my hope. The father of 6 children, Tokbulat Gasanov, has been seeking justice in courts for 4 years. According to him, in 2008, he borrowed money from a certain Askar Seydakhmetov, but after debt repayment, he unexpectedly filed a suit against the borrower, accusing him of underpayment. He says there are at least 4 people like him in Astana. The court decided to levy on businessman more than $13,000 in penalty to the plaintiff. Meanwhile, the police officers advised to schedule an appointment with the chair of the Supreme Court later. Tokbulat Gasanov was promised that Bektas Beknazarov, the chair of the Supreme Court, has scheduled a meeting with him on March 4th. Kazakh authorities decide to cut child care benefits for those women who earn more than $1,200 a month. Officials claimed that the bill was prepared for 2 years, but those who will be influenced by the law are not quite surprised by the news. Kazakh women were divided into rich and poor based on their level of income. This was done to cut on the maternity benefit. Officials found a violation of a principle of social justice in the high salaries of women in Kazakhstan. They decided that by cutting on expenses for wealthy women whose reaction in the social networks has already been referred to as the protest of mint coats, the state will be able to provide a better support for pregnant women and mothers with small incomes. Generally, large companies with considerable income pay high wages. If they hire a woman in reproductive age for a high salary, then they have to pay off the benefit rate differential. The reporter of newspaper Vremya, Alexandra Alekhova, is 4 months pregnant. She doesn't associate herself with the low-income class and therefore seems a bit worried by the legislative innovation. She already calculated that reduced benefits will not be enough for the required number of diapers and other accessories for a baby. Plus, she will be inclined to take a shorter maternity leave. Since I'm a financially independent woman, the state deemed necessary to classify me nearly as bourgeois and hence reduce my benefits. It seems to me that they limited the active women who earn decent money and pay taxes simply to put them in check. Head of the Single Mothers Organization, Madina Imbetova, is preparing for a rally together with her colleagues. They don't recall the public discussion of this bill adopted on February 4th, which came as a surprise to many citizens of Kazakhstan. Perhaps this is only a test run by the officials and we shall expect more surprises of such kind, they say. It's one thing if these assets are cut down on the wealthy to be allocated among those in need. However, they simply cut it off, and the funds will most likely be spent on some expo breakthrough projects. Leader of Free Trade Unions of Kazakhstan, Larisa Kharkova, was among those who spent 2 years striving for ratification of Convention concerning maternity protection. In January of 2012, the president enacted the relevant bill. Reduction of social benefits is as bad as the gender discrimination during employment, says the expert. Why do we have to beg the employer again? Then why did we enact the bill saying that we're committed to international law as if it's our priority? We basically took one step forwards and 10 backwards. The law comes into force on February 17th, while those opposing it are planning to initiate a protest action on February 20th. The rally organizers have addressed a letter to the prosecutor's office demanding to discontinue the gender discrimination, revise the provisions of the law, and urge the officials to improve the system encouraging childbirth in the country. Agency regulating the natural monopolies tried to explain the situation with ongoing growth of tariffs. Why tariffs go up? Find out from the next report. Why officials increase utility rates every year? Local experts have tried to once again find an answer to this rhetorical question. They believe one of the reasons is the lack of the consumers' involvement in discussions of tariffs. Thus, MP Svetlana Romanovskaya urges non-governmental sector to participate in discussions more actively. This year, we initiated the development of the bill on public control over utility rates. It is connected to the issue that we're discussing, that is how this public control will be sustained. We must fund it and what powers should be granted to public watchdogs. This is a very important question because we are already tired of fruitlessly talking about non-profit organizations. Annual increase in power and heat tariffs caused by exhaustion of utility lines and communications is the favored argument of the service providers. Representative of Consumer Protection Group Dauren Kaysarov asked the anti-monopoly agency whether the rates would fall when the endless repairs finish. We noticed in this study that the majority of utility service providers are in private hands. That explains many things, since most of them are found in limited liability companies and joint stock companies. Their main aim by nature is to make maximum profit. They simply do not care about modernization of systems and consumer rights. Leadership of Almaty Antitrust Agency persists on its opinion. According to it, the thermal power industry's annual turnover is $65 million, is not enough to update the entire pipeline network of the central heating system. Now the question is what it covers. It is enough to update virtually 1% of the entire heating network of Almaty city, so what kind of effect you expect from it now? If only updating 1% of the total length of central heating network costs us an annual turnover of central heating company. Critics of public utility services based on the data of antitrust agency officials immediately calculated that the modernization would finish in 100 years. However, it is possible that public utility services will vanish by that time. After the election of the new Pope, Kazakhstan can reconsider its relations with Vatican. This possibility is not excluded by the Religious Affairs Agency, even though the procedure is not directly linked to the future political course of the new Pope. According to the rules, the document is revised every 10 years and is automatically prolonged if no comments emerge. This year is exactly the end of the decade. This year is the right year for this. We may initiate those questions and address them if necessary. I want to stress that we ratified the agreement at the end of last year and there will be no significant changes in the near future. The head of the agency also reminded about the changes in the local religious field. All religious associations went through a re-registration process recently. 30% of organizations have been declared outlaw. Despite that, as of now, there are over 3,000 organizations in the country which do not have the right to preach and disseminate books on the street. Officials say it is illegal. One can only engage in missionary work with an appropriate permission and on the territory approved by city administrations. Pupils from Zhalagash High School revive Skillful Hands Club and contribute on solving of the global environmental problem. More details in the next report. This eye-catching toadstool crafted by young artisans is going to serve as an actual stool for preschoolers. According to one of the workshop designers, Nasken Murtash, it takes girls around 3 hours to finish each of the 50 furniture pieces set for production. We're proud of each of the crafted pieces. These stools for the little ones are made of empty paint tins, pieces of velvet and sponge. We should try to see the world with the eyes of our children. We had an idea to give second life to all those items and goods disposed every day. So we decided to start a hobby group for the girls to cultivate creativity and ease the littering problem. Artistry and creative approach of the little artisans have turned an old bowl into an oval vase filled with gorgeous flowers made of white paper tissue. Such lifelike floral arrangements and melt-proof handcrafted showmen are true pieces of art to enjoy for years to come. This craft is the result of a great deal of teamwork. It's the winner of the New Year district-wide school contest for the best showman. It was made of a large number of Dixie cups, while its nose is just pieces of cloth padded with cotton wool, and the bottoms are all beanie pompons. The little crafters make their beautiful pieces out of the most trivial materials often perceived as garbage. Thus, old buttons and floppy disks magically turn into caskets, empty bottles become funny animals, and nylon stockings get their second life in flower arrangements. The crafts will soon be displayed for sale at the local artisan fair, and the earnings will be transferred to one of the orphanages. The General Consulate Office of Russia in Almaty held the Literature Evening of Alexander Pushkin. It was dedicated to the 176th anniversary of the death of the great Russian poet. Our reporting team attended the event. The melody inspired by the Belkin Tales opened the literary hall meeting devoted to the 175th anniversary of Pushkin's death in the Consulate General of Russia in Almaty. Such memorial gatherings have long become a tradition in every city of Russia and some of the CIS countries. The Pushkin Evening in Almaty commemorated the great writer's talent and the literary works of Kazakhstan authors devoted to the Russian poet. Among those were the Kazakhstani Pushkinyana by Svetlana Ananyeva and research of Pushkin's heritage in Kazakhstan's literary studies by Aynur Kalyaskarova. Alexander Pushkin's poems have been translated to nearly every language. Over 150 poet monuments were erected in 42 countries all over the world. Curiously, the Pushkin's famous letter of Tatiana to Onegin was initially written in French, which was one of the writer's favorite languages. We've just heard the famous letter of Tatiana passionately reciting by the young lady from Miraz school. You might remember that Pushkin had always referred to it as just an imperfect translation. He believed Russian language was not passionate enough to reflect the emotions of a woman in love. The Russian poet was also known for his love to gypsy romance songs, some of which were performed for the audience by the singer Neil Creek. Quite noteworthy, Alexander Pushkin visited Uralsk when doing research for the Pugachev's rebellion history and the Captain's Daughter novel. Although the great poet's stay lasted for less than a month, the Uralsk citizens still cherish the memory of his visit as the Kazakhstan's cultural heritage. This is all we have time for now. Don't forget to watch our weekly Vlast KZ on Monday. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.